2 days before the wedding, my fiancé's brother called me at 2:17 a.m. She's not who you think she is. He told me everything. Next morning, I drove to her work, with her dad in the car. The digital clock on my nightstand glowed 2:17 a.m. when my phone shattered the silence. 3 days of wedding preparations had exhausted me, but sleep remained elusive as final details swirled through my mind. The caller ID showed Ryan's name, which struck me as odd since my fiancé's brother rarely contacted me directly, especially at such an ungodly hour. His voice trembled with something between anger and desperation when I answered. Ryan had discovered something that would destroy our upcoming ceremony, something about his sister that she had hidden from everyone, including her own family. He refused to elaborate over the phone, insisting we meet at the old diner on Route 47 immediately. The 20-minute drive through empty streets gave my mind time to race through possibilities. Financial troubles seemed most likely, perhaps debts that would burden our marriage. Maybe she had been married before and never mentioned it. These scenarios felt manageable, fixable even. Ryan sat hunched in a corner booth, clutching a manila envelope and a cup of cold coffee. His usual confident demeanor had crumbled into something unrecognizable. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept in days. When he looked up at me, the resemblance to his sister became painfully apparent. The envelope contained photographs, bank statements, and printed emails that painted a picture I couldn't immediately comprehend. The images showed my fiancé entering and leaving a downtown office building that housed several private investigation firms. The bank statements revealed regular payments to something called Meridian Research Solutions, a company I had never heard her mention. Ryan explained that he had stumbled upon these documents while helping their father organize financial papers for the wedding gift he planned to give us. What started as innocent curiosity had led him down a rabbit hole that revealed his sister's secret profession. For the past 4 years, she had been working as a private investigator specializing in matrimonial cases, essentially a professional mistress who helped expose cheating spouses. The revelation hit me like a physical blow, but Ryan wasn't finished. He pulled out additional photographs showing my fiancé in intimate situations with various men, always in hotel rooms or expensive restaurants. These weren't random encounters, but carefully orchestrated operations designed to test the fidelity of suspicious wives' husbands. My first instinct was to defend her, to find logical explanations for what appeared to be damning evidence. Perhaps she had been forced into this work, threatened somehow. Maybe the photographs were doctored or taken out of context. Ryan shook his head sadly and produced the final piece of evidence that would shatter my world completely. Among the printed emails was a detailed conversation between my fiancée and her supervisor at Meridian Research Solutions discussing a new assignment. The target was described as a wealthy businessman who had recently gotten engaged and whose suspicious fiancé wanted proof of his infidelity before their wedding. The target's description matched me perfectly, down to my height, hair color, and the expensive watch I wore daily. The timeline became sickeningly clear as Ryan walked me through the evidence. Our first meeting at the coffee shop near my office hadn't been coincidence, but careful planning. The charming way she had bumped into me, spilling her latte on my shirt, had been a practiced maneuver. Our whirlwind romance, which I had attributed to perfect compatibility, was actually a professional seduction designed to gather evidence of my unfaithfulness. But the cruel irony was that I had remained completely faithful throughout our relationship. The investigation should have concluded months ago with a clean report, yet here we were, 2 days before our wedding. Ryan showed me more recent emails that revealed the truth behind her continued deception. My fiancée had fallen in love with me during the course of her investigation. The professional had become personal, and she found herself trapped between her genuine feelings and her fraudulent foundation. Her supervisor had grown suspicious of the extended timeline and lack of concrete evidence, threatening to expose her emotional compromise to their client. The client, according to the email chain, was actually my former business partner's wife. She had suspected our professional relationship extended beyond business hours and hired the investigation firm to prove her suspicions. The investigation had been ongoing for 8 months, covering the entire duration of my relationship with the woman I was planning to marry. Ryan revealed that he had confronted his sister the previous evening, demanding an explanation for the documents he had discovered. She had broken down completely, confessing not only to the investigation, but to her genuine love for me and her terror about the approaching wedding. She wanted to tell me the truth, but feared losing me forever. The complexity of the situation overwhelmed me as I sat in that dimly lit diner booth. The woman I loved was real, but our entire relationship was built on a lie. She genuinely cared for me, but she was also being paid to seduce me. We were planning a wedding that would simultaneously fulfill her personal desires and complete her professional assignment. Ryan finished his explanation by revealing that his sister planned to confess everything to me after our honeymoon, hoping that our married bond would be strong enough to survive the truth. She had already drafted a resignation letter to Meridian Research Solutions and prepared a full report that would clear my name completely. The next morning arrived gray and rainy, matching my fractured emotional state perfectly. Ryan's revelations had kept me awake for the remaining hours until dawn, my mind spinning through the implications of what I had learned. The woman sleeping peacefully in our shared bed was both the love of my life and a professional deceiver. I spent the early hours researching Meridian Research Solutions, discovering a sophisticated operation that specialized in matrimonial investigations. Their website featured testimonials from satisfied clients who had uncovered affairs, hidden assets, and various forms of marital deception. The company's success rate was impressive, and their methods were apparently both effective and discreet. My phone buzzed with a text message from my fiancée, who had left early for a final dress fitting. She wrote about her excitement for our upcoming ceremony and her love for me, words that now carried double meaning. Every affectionate message became a potential lie, every shared memory tainted by the possibility of calculation. The wedding preparations continued around me, as if nothing had changed. Vendors called with final confirmations, relatives arrived from out of town, and the venue coordinator requested last-minute decisions about seating arrangements. I moved through these interactions mechanically, providing responses while my thoughts remained fixed on the manila envelope hidden in my desk drawer. By midday, I had made a decision that surprised even myself. Rather than confront my fiancée directly or cancel the wedding immediately, I chose to conduct my own investigation. If she was a professional deceiver, I would become an amateur detective. The irony of investigating my investigator wasn't lost on me. My first stop was Meridian Research Solutions' downtown office building. The directory listed them on the 14th floor, nestled between a law firm and an accounting practice. I rode the elevator up, my heart pounding with each floor that passed. The receptionist confirmed that my fiancée worked there, but claimed she was currently on extended leave for personal reasons. This lie within a lie created new questions. If she was supposedly on leave, how was she still receiving assignments and communicating with supervisors? The email chain Ryan had shown me was dated from the previous week, well into her supposed absence from work. I decided to wait in the building's lobby, hoping to observe the office's operations and possibly spot my fiancée entering or leaving. 2 hours of surveillance yielded nothing except suspicious looks from security guards who clearly wondered why I was loitering in their building. The afternoon brought a breakthrough when I remembered the expensive restaurant mentioned in several of the photographs Ryan had shown me. The images showed my fiancée dining with various men, always in the same corner booth with distinctive red leather seating. The restaurant was only 6 blocks from Meridian's office, suggesting it was a regular location for their operations. The maitre d' recognized my fiancée's photograph immediately and confirmed she was a regular customer who always requested the same table. He mentioned that she typically arrived with different gentlemen and seemed to conduct business meetings over dinner. His description of her behavior suggested professional interactions rather than romantic ones, which aligned with her investigative work. More disturbing was his revelation that she had made a reservation for the following evening, our wedding eve, with a gentleman he described as older and distinguished. The booking was under her real name, not any of the aliases I suspected she might use for her work. This suggested either supreme confidence or complete carelessness. I left the restaurant with more questions than answers and a growing sense that Ryan's information represented only the surface of a much deeper deception. The timeline of our relationship suddenly seemed suspect from every angle. Had any of our interactions been genuine, or was I simply the subject of an extended professional performance? The wedding rehearsal was scheduled for that evening, an event that now felt like preparing for an elaborate theatrical production rather than a sacred ceremony. Family members from both sides would gather to practice the rituals that would legally bind me to a woman whose true identity remained a mystery. I arrived at the church early, hoping to observe my fiancée's behavior with fresh eyes. She appeared radiant and genuinely happy, greeting relatives with warm embraces and discussing wedding details with obvious excitement. If this was performance art, it was masterfully executed. During the rehearsal itself, I found myself analyzing every gesture and expression for signs of deception. When she looked into my eyes during the practice vows, did I see genuine love or professional commitment? When she laughed at her uncle's jokes, was the joy authentic or calculated? The paranoia was exhausting and probably obvious to anyone paying attention. The rehearsal dinner provided an opportunity to observe her interactions with Ryan, who had agreed to attend despite his knowledge of her secret. Their sibling dynamic appeared completely normal, filled with affectionate teasing and shared family memories. If she suspected that Ryan had discovered her truth, she showed no signs of concern. But I noticed subtle details that had previously escaped my attention. She deflected questions about her work with practiced ease, always redirecting conversations towards safer topics. When relatives asked about our future plans, her responses remained vague and noncommittal. These behaviors could be explained by normal privacy preferences, but they now seemed potentially sinister. The evening concluded with traditional toasts and well wishes from both families. My fiancé's father spoke emotionally about gaining a son and expressed his happiness that his daughter had found true love. The irony of his words was almost unbearable, knowing that his daughter's profession involved destroying marriages while simultaneously celebrating her own upcoming nuptials. The morning of our wedding eve brought unseasonably warm weather and a phone call that would transform my amateur investigation into something far more serious. The caller identified herself as Detective Sarah Martinez from the city's fraud division, requesting an immediate meeting to discuss Meridian Research Solutions and my fiancé's involvement with the company. Detective Martinez explained that Meridian had been under investigation for several months following complaints from clients who claimed to have been defrauded. The company allegedly fabricated evidence of infidelity when genuine proof couldn't be obtained, charging substantial fees for manufactured scandals that destroyed innocent marriages. My fiancée wasn't just an investigator, but potentially a key witness in a criminal case involving fraud, blackmail, and extortion. The detective had been trying to locate her for weeks, but she had seemingly vanished from her apartment and workplace. The wedding announcement in the local newspaper had provided the first concrete lead to her whereabouts. The revelation that our wedding announcement had inadvertently exposed my fiancé to law enforcement added another layer of complexity to an already incomprehensible situation. Detective Martinez requested my cooperation in arranging a meeting, emphasizing that my fiancé wasn't necessarily a criminal but could be a victim of the larger fraud scheme. I agreed to help, but only after the detective explained the full scope of their investigation. Meridian Research Solutions had been systematically defrauding clients by extending investigations indefinitely, creating false evidence when real proof couldn't be obtained, and in some cases, blackmailing targets who had actually committed infidelities. The company's business model was brilliant in its simplicity and horrifying in its execution. They would accept cases from suspicious spouses, conduct legitimate investigations initially, but then fabricate evidence regardless of what they actually discovered. Innocent targets would be framed for affairs they never committed, while guilty parties would be blackmailed to prevent exposure. My case appeared to fit neither pattern exactly, which had made it particularly interesting to law enforcement. The investigation had been ongoing for 8 months without any fabricated evidence or blackmail attempts. Instead, my fiancée seemed to have genuinely fallen in love with her target, creating a situation that compromised the entire operation. Detective Martinez revealed that they had been monitoring Meridian's communications for months and were aware of my fiancé's emotional involvement in my case. Her supervisor had grown increasingly frustrated with her lack of progress and had recently threatened to fabricate evidence if she couldn't produce results. The detective's next revelation was the most shocking yet. My former business partner's wife, the client who had hired Meridian to investigate me, had been murdered 3 days earlier. The death was initially considered a random robbery, but evidence suggested a connection to the investigation firm. The murder had prompted an acceleration of the fraud investigation, with multiple arrests planned for the day after my wedding. Detective Martinez needed my fiancé's testimony to build a case against Meridian's leadership, but she had to be brought in voluntarily before the arrests began. I found myself in the surreal position of planning to apprehend my bride on our wedding day to assist in a murder investigation. The detective assured me that my fiancée wasn't considered a suspect in the killing, but could be in danger if Meridian's leadership perceived her as a threat to their operation. The weight of this information was staggering. Not only was my relationship built on professional deception, but it was now connected to fraud, blackmail, and murder. The woman I was planning to marry in less than 24 hours was potentially both a criminal and a victim, and I was the unwitting center of a police investigation. Detective Martinez suggested that we approach my fiancée together at the wedding venue, using the ceremony as cover for what was essentially a law enforcement operation. The plan seemed insane, but the alternative was to risk her disappearing again or potentially becoming another victim of whatever violence had claimed her client's life. I called Ryan and explained the new developments, asking him to meet me at my apartment immediately. His reaction to the murder news was visible shock followed by genuine fear for his sister's safety. He agreed to help coordinate with the detective, but insisted that his parents be kept unaware of the situation until after it was resolved. The three of us spent the afternoon developing a plan to approach my fiancée safely and convince her to cooperate with the investigation. The challenge was determining her level of knowledge about Meridian's criminal activities and her potential involvement in anything beyond the matrimonial investigations. Detective Martinez reviewed my fiancé's employment records and financial statements, looking for evidence of unusual payments or suspicious activities. The documents showed regular salary payments and standard benefits, with no obvious signs of participation in the company's fraudulent schemes. However, the detective discovered something that chilled my blood. Among my fiancé's recent expense reports was a charge for a storage unit rented under an assumed name. The facility was located in an industrial area of the city, and the rental agreement dated back to the beginning of our relationship. We drove to the storage facility immediately, where Detective Martinez used her authority to gain access to the unit. What we found inside transformed our understanding of the entire situation and revealed that my fiancé was far more involved in Meridian's operations than anyone had suspected. The storage unit contained evidence of a conspiracy that extended far beyond matrimonial fraud and into the realm of organized crime. Boxes of documents revealed that Meridian Research Solutions was a front for a sophisticated blackmail operation targeting wealthy individuals throughout the region. My fiancée hadn't just been investigating potentially unfaithful spouses. She had been gathering compromising information on powerful people for the purpose of extortion. The matrimonial cases were legitimate cover for intelligence-gathering operations that fed into a larger criminal network. Detective Martinez photographed everything quickly while explaining that we had stumbled into something far more dangerous than a simple fraud investigation. The evidence suggested connections to money laundering, political corruption, and possibly organized crime families. Among the documents was a detailed file on my former business partner and his wife, revealing that their marriage had been under surveillance for months before I was ever targeted. The investigation into me wasn't initiated by the wife's suspicions, but was actually designed to gather leverage against my business partner, who apparently had connections to local political figures. The murdered woman had discovered the true nature of the investigation and threatened to expose the entire operation. Her death wasn't random violence, but a calculated elimination of a threat to the criminal enterprise. My fiancé's emotional involvement with me had complicated their plans and potentially placed her in danger as well. We rushed back to the wedding venue, where guests were already beginning to arrive for the ceremony. The surreal nature of the situation was overwhelming. Family and friends gathering to celebrate a union that was actually the center of a criminal investigation involving fraud, blackmail, and murder. Detective Martinez positioned herself and several backup officers around the venue while I attempted to locate my fiancée. She was in the bridal preparation room, surrounded by her bridesmaids and looking genuinely radiant in her wedding gown. The contrast between her apparent happiness and the dark reality I had discovered was jarring. I requested a private moment with her, claiming I needed to discuss a last-minute change to our vows. When we were alone, I presented her with some of the evidence from the storage unit and watched her face transform from confusion to recognition to absolute terror. She collapsed into a chair, the elaborate wedding dress pooling around her like a white ocean of deception. Her confession came in broken fragments as she realized that her secret life had finally caught up with her. She had indeed been working for Meridian, but claimed to have been unaware of the broader criminal activities until recently. According to her story, she had been recruited as a legitimate private investigator and assigned matrimonial cases that seemed straightforward. The emotional involvement with me had been genuine and unexpected, complicating her professional obligations and creating conflicts with her supervisors. She revealed that she had discovered the true nature of Meridian's operations only 2 weeks earlier, when she was asked to plant evidence in another case. Her refusal to participate had led to threats against both of us, which explained her recent anxiety and secretive behavior. The murder of my former business partner's wife had been the final proof that Meridian was willing to kill to protect their operation. My fiancée had been planning to disappear after our wedding, hoping to escape the criminal network and start a new life with me somewhere far away. Detective Martinez entered the room at that moment, having grown concerned about the length of our conversation. My fiancée agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for protection and reduced charges related to her involvement in the matrimonial fraud. The wedding ceremony became an impromptu law enforcement operation as additional officers arrived to secure the venue and ensure the safety of all guests. We had to make a decision about how to handle the immediate situation with hundreds of family members and friends expecting a celebration. My fiancée suggested that we proceed with a modified ceremony that would satisfy our families while providing cover for the ongoing investigation. The plan was to exchange vows publicly, then work with law enforcement privately to ensure her cooperation and safety. The ceremony itself was both beautiful and heartbreaking, a genuine expression of love overshadowed by the knowledge of deception and danger. When we exchanged rings, I looked into her eyes and saw both the woman I had fallen in love with and the professional deceiver who had manipulated our entire relationship. Our first dance as husband and wife was interrupted by Detective Martinez, who informed us that Meridian's leadership had been arrested and several other investigators had been taken into custody. The immediate danger had passed, but the legal proceedings would likely take months or years to resolve. The reception continued with our guests unaware of the dramatic events that had just unfolded. Family members toasted our happiness, while federal agents coordinated the largest fraud bust in the city's history. The contrast between celebration and investigation created a surreal atmosphere that I will never forget. Consequences and aftermath. 6 months after our wedding day, the legal consequences of the Meridian investigation continued to unfold with shocking revelations about the scope of their criminal enterprise. My wife testified as a key witness in federal court, helping prosecutors secure convictions against 12 individuals involved in the fraud and blackmail operation. The storage unit evidence proved crucial in connecting Meridian to 3 additional murders disguised as accidents or robberies. The criminal network had been operating for over 5 years, destroying marriages and lives while generating millions in illegal profits through blackmail and extortion schemes. My wife received immunity from prosecution in exchange for her cooperation, but the psychological toll of her involvement has been significant. She suffers from anxiety and guilt about her role in destroying innocent families, even though she was manipulated by the criminal organization. Our marriage survived the revelations, but it required extensive counseling and a complete rebuilding of trust. The foundation of deception made every interaction suspect initially, and we had to learn to love each other again based on honest communication rather than professional manipulation. Ryan supported his sister throughout the legal proceedings and helped coordinate her testimony with federal prosecutors. The family dynamics changed permanently when their parents learned the truth about her secret profession, though they eventually accepted the situation and supported her recovery. Detective Martinez became an unexpected ally in our healing process, helping us understand the psychological techniques used by criminal organizations to recruit and control their operatives. My wife had been as much a victim as a perpetrator, manipulated by professionals who exploited her financial desperation and emotional vulnerabilities. The investigation revealed that hundreds of marriages had been destroyed by Meridian's fabricated evidence, leading to a wave of civil lawsuits against the company and its operatives. Many clients demanded refunds and damages, while victims of their blackmail schemes came forward to testify about years of financial exploitation. My former business partner was revealed to have been laundering money for organized crime families, explaining why his wife had been murdered when she threatened to expose the investigation. His arrest on federal charges vindicated the original suspicions that had led to my wife being assigned to investigate me. The wedding venue where our ceremony took place became briefly famous as the site where federal agents arrested an entire criminal network. The management company used the publicity to market their security capabilities, though they refunded our deposit due to the unusual circumstances. Our honeymoon was postponed indefinitely while my wife worked with federal marshals to ensure her safety during the trial proceedings. Several members of the criminal organization remained at large, and witness protection protocols were necessary until all arrests were completed. The media attention surrounding the case was intense but brief, with our story becoming part of a larger narrative about matrimonial fraud and organized crime. We declined interview requests and maintained privacy throughout the legal proceedings, focusing on rebuilding our relationship and planning our future. Today, we live in a different city under our real names, having relocated after the trials concluded and the remaining criminals were apprehended. My wife works as a victim advocate, helping people who have been deceived by fraud schemes similar to the one that originally brought us together. The irony that our love story began with professional deception but evolved into genuine partnership isn't lost on either of us. We've learned that trust must be earned daily and that the most important investigations are the ones we conduct into our own hearts and motivations. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.